Every aviation incident has a moment when a routine flight becomes an emergency. In this video, we look at real plane crashes and emergency landings caught on camera. What happened, what is confirmed, and what each case can teach about aviation safety. No hype, no guessing, just the facts behind the footage. On April 12, 2026, a Republic RC-3 Seabee departed on a local flight over Phoenix, Arizona. There were 3 people on board. At about 2,500 feet, the propeller speed suddenly began to run too high. The pilot tried to control it, but the engine and propeller did not respond. Then smoke appeared near the engine cowling, and the engine lost power. Before reaching the road, the important part was the setup, keeping the aircraft under control, choosing the clearest path available, and avoiding traffic and buildings as much as possible. During the landing, the left wing struck a water backflow valve, causing major damage to the aircraft. All 3 people on board survived. No one on the ground was injured. The NTSB preliminary findings show that the right side exhaust tailpipe had separated from the exhaust manifold. Investigators also found heat damage and fractures around parts of the intake system, fuel line, and engine wiring. The final cause has not been confirmed yet. In a low-altitude power loss over a city, the pilot may not get a good option. The goal becomes choosing the least dangerous path and keeping the aircraft flying long enough to reach it.
Are you okay? Okay. Oh, you all right? Okay. Don't move, don't move, don't move.
On May 16, 2026, Croatia Airlines flight OU-412 began its takeoff roll at Split Airport in Croatia. The Airbus A220 was heading for Frankfurt with 130 passengers and 5 crew members on board. During the takeoff roll, the crew stopped the takeoff. After that, the aircraft left the runway and struck airport equipment before coming to a stop. Everyone was evacuated safely. No injuries were reported. The official cause has not been confirmed yet. Investigators are reviewing the aircraft, runway conditions, crew actions, and recorded flight data. The important point is this: the video shows what happened, but not why it happened. The investigation has to explain why this aircraft left the runway after the takeoff was stopped.
Junge.
On August 22, 2010, a Swift S-1 aerobatic glider was flying at the Shoreham Airshow in West Sussex, England. During the display, the glider stayed behind the tow aircraft before release. After release, the pilot tried to return to the landing area. The approach did not work out as planned. The glider was going to land beyond the intended point, so the pilot started a tight left turn close to the runway. At low height, the margin was almost gone. The left wing dropped, the glider stalled, and there was not enough altitude to recover. The glider hit the runway in a steep nose-down attitude. The pilot survived, but suffered serious injuries. The AAIB found that the glider stalled during a low final turn. The report also pointed to planning and decision-making before the landing. In a glider, low altitude leaves very few options. If the aircraft is already close to the ground, a tight turn can remove the last chance to recover. On January 5, 2014, a Challenger 601 was landing in Aspen, Colorado. The first approach already showed the risk. There was a strong tailwind, and the crew went around. On the second approach, the problem was still there. The jet was high, fast, and landing with a tailwind above its limits. But the approach continued. The aircraft hit the runway hard, bounced, and came down nose first. A fire broke out almost immediately. There were 3 people on board. The co-pilot was killed. The captain and 1 passenger were seriously injured. The NTSB found that the crew lost control after an unstable approach. Investigators also found that the aircraft should have gone around instead of continuing the landing. This accident is about one decision point. If the aircraft is high, fast, and landing with too much tailwind, the runway should not be forced. The safe move is to go around while there is still time, altitude, and control.
Can we see the gear?
On March 25, 2016, JetBlue Flight 29 was arriving in Nassau, Bahamas from Washington. 97 people were on board.
It looks like it's down.
When the crew lowered the landing gear, the main gear locked, but the nose gear did not show safe.
Name of Jesus.
The crew went around, followed the checklist, and tried several times to lower the nose gear fully. It remained jammed. Before the final landing, the crew focused on the runway, speed, emergency crews, and keeping the nose off the runway as long as possible.
There we go.
Once the aircraft stopped, everyone got out safely.
Jesus.
No injuries were reported. The Bahamas investigation found a failure in the nose gear system. The nose gear was not centered as it moved down, so it jammed before it could fully extend. The important part was the time used before landing. The crew went around, worked the checklist, and gave emergency crews time to be ready before the final approach.
Oh, yes. Ain't God good? Oh, my hat. Sorry, that's hot.
On September 1st, 2024, Air New Zealand Flight 5366 was on final approach to Wellington, New Zealand. The aircraft was arriving from Christchurch. Close to landing, the crew received a warning from the left engine. First came low oil pressure, then a fault warning, then a fire warning. At about 300 feet, there was no time to keep checking the problem. The pilot declared Mayday and continued the landing. The aircraft landed safely, and airport fire crews reached it quickly. Everyone was evacuated onto the runway. No serious injuries were reported. The final cause has not been confirmed yet. New Zealand investigators are reviewing the engine warnings, aircraft systems, maintenance history, and recorded flight data. At that height, the priority was clear. Keep flying, land safely, and let emergency crews deal with the aircraft after it stopped.
They've just killed their engine, haven't they? It's certainly changed everything, hasn't it? Yeah, don't know. Incredible, isn't it?
On January 21st, 2026, a Piper Cherokee was parked on the ramp at Scottsdale Airport in Arizona. It was being prepared for its first flight of the day. The student pilot had finished the pre-flight check and was getting ready to start the engine. The problem started before the airplane ever moved. The parking brake was not set, and the pilot's seat was too far back for her to press the brake pedals fully. When the engine started, the airplane began to roll. The student pilot tried to stop it, but she could not apply enough braking force. The aircraft rolled across the ramp and hit two empty parked vehicles. The pilot was not injured. No one was inside the vehicles. The airplane had major damage to both wings. The NTSB found that the cause was simple. The seat was not properly adjusted, and the parking brake was not set before engine start. The key point is clear. Safety does not begin at takeoff. It starts before engine start, with the seat position, brake reach, and parking brake checked before the propeller ever turns. On May 17, 2026, two U.S. Navy EA-18G Growlers collided during an airshow demonstration at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. The aircraft were flying as part of the Gunfighter Skies Airshow. During the maneuver, the two jets came together in the air. Both aircraft were lost, but all four crew members ejected. Rescue teams later confirmed that all four were alive. No injuries on the ground were reported. The official cause has not been confirmed yet. The Navy is investigating the mid-air collision, including spacing, timing, flight path, and crew actions. The important point is not to guess from the video. Airshow formation flying depends on precise separation. When that spacing disappears, the crews may have only seconds to react. In March 2019, a video from Asuncion, Paraguay, showed an aircraft landing while runway work was still taking place nearby. The airport was operating with a shortened landing distance because part of the runway was under repair. According to Paraguay's Aviation Authority, the usable runway had been reduced from about 3,300 meters to about 1,700 meters. Operators were supposed to receive that information through a NOTAM. There was no plane crash, no injuries were reported, and no aircraft damage was reported. But the video raised a serious safety concern. Workers and vehicles were still close to an active landing area. The authority later described the situation as unusual, and said the pilot had been warned for an improper runway maneuver. The exact sequence is not fully clear from the video alone. The important point is runway discipline. When maintenance and aircraft operations happen at the same time, the limits have to be clear. A runway can only be safe if crews, pilots, vehicles, and air traffic control all understand exactly which part is active and which part is not. On October 10, 2025, an American Eagle regional jet was being refueled at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport in Texas. The aircraft was still on the ground, but the risk was already serious. During refueling, the fuel hose came loose and began spraying jet fuel around the aircraft. At that point, the danger was not speed or altitude. It was fuel on the ramp, people working nearby, and the risk of ignition. Airport crews contained the spill and cleaned the area. American Airlines said it was reviewing the incident with DFW Airport and the fueling contractor, Menzies. The exact cause has not been officially confirmed. This was not a flight emergency, but it shows why ground operations matter. A parked aircraft can still become dangerous when fuel, pressure, equipment, and people are all working close together. On May 15, 2026, a light aircraft went off the runway at a small airfield in Cobán, Guatemala. The runway excursion happened near runway 03. The aircraft stopped in vegetation not far from nearby homes. Emergency responders arrived at the scene. No fatalities were reported. No serious injuries were reported. The people on board were treated for shock. Guatemala's Civil Aviation Authority confirmed the runway excursion. The official cause has not been determined yet. The Accident Investigation Unit was notified and began technical checks. The important point is not to guess from the video. At a small airfield, once an aircraft leaves the runway, the safety margin becomes very small. In this case, the aircraft stopped before reaching nearby homes, and everyone survived. On April 3, 2026, a Winair twin Otter landed during strong wind on the island of St. Martin. The aircraft was already on the runway when a sudden gust pushed it offline. At low speed, with strong crosswind, there was very little time to correct. The aircraft left the runway area before it could be brought back under control. No injuries were reported. There was no fire. Local reports said the aircraft was affected by a sudden gust during landing. No final official report has been released yet, so the exact findings should not be treated as confirmed. The important point is that a crosswind landing does not end at touchdown. As speed drops, control becomes less effective, but wind can still push the aircraft off the runway in the last seconds. On January 19, 2013, a Cessna 152 was flying a training navigation flight in Brazil. An instructor and a student were on board. After leaving Londrina, the first warning was low oil pressure. Then, the engine began to vibrate heavily, and the crew noticed the smell of burning oil. At that point, they shut the engine down and chose a soybean field near Cornelio Procopio for the forced landing. The aircraft was damaged, mainly around the engine and propeller. Both people on board survived. No injuries were reported. CENIPA classified the accident as an engine system failure. The confirmed sequence was low oil pressure, strong vibration, burning oil smell, engine shutdown, and a forced landing in a field. The important part was the timing. The crew did not wait for the situation to get worse. They chose a landing area while they still had control and enough time to reach it.